Welcome to today's episode of Curiosity Uncovered. Today we're going to learn about fingerprints. Fingerprints have three fundamental principles. Okay? The first one is that a fingerprint is an individual characteristic. So what does it mean if something's an individual characteristic? That means that can be associated with a single person and not with anyone else, okay? The second thing is that a fingerprint remains unchanged during your lifetime, and that fingerprints have ridge patterns that allow them to be classified. Let's dig into our fingerprint patterns. Okay, so one of the easiest way to see that is because fingerprints are kind of tiny. So I am going to take this white balloon, okay, and I decided that I liked this better. And so this is an ink pad, okay? Now, when you make a fingerprint, you want to be sure that you roll your finger, okay? That's very important. So I'm gonna come here on my balloon. I'm gonna try and lay it out kind of flat. I'm gonna stand up to do this. Okay, got my baby white. Gonna clean my hands up just a little bit so that I can touch this. Okay, we ready? Okay, now. Okay, so when you do this, now you can get a really good image of that pattern. Okay, so this pattern is actually called a whorl. Okay, so, and I can say that because if you look right here in the center, you see some swirls. There's three different fingerprint patterns. So let me give you an example of what that looks like, pretty simply stated. Okay, there's an arch, a loop, and a whorl. The simplest of these is an arch. An arch, the friction ridge lines enter from one side and exit from the other. Okay, enter, exit. Think of a wave, right? It kind of goes just like this. Now you can have a tinted arch, which means that it enters and maybe it peaks and comes back down, but it's still going to enter from one side, exit from the other. Then the next pattern that we have is called a loop. A loop, you're going to see it's going to enter from one side, turn back on itself, and exit from the same side. Okay, that's called a loop. It's going to come in, going to loop back on itself, and exit from the same side. Now the last one that we have is called the whorl, right? And there's a couple of different types of whorls, but all we need to know is that you're going to have this center right here that's going to help you determine what that pattern is. So here is my beautiful whorled thumbprint, okay? And here's what's super cool too. Every one of your fingers could have a different pattern. Just because you have a whorl on one thumb doesn't mean you have a whorl on the other thumb, okay? Or if you have an arch on your index finger, which I actually do have an arch on this index finger, okay? Which means I have an arch on this finger and a whorl on that finger. So this is about the time where you guys are all like looking at your hands and you're going, I don't know, what do I have? Well, a simple way to do that is to, if you have an ink pad, you can go ahead and ink something just on a piece of paper. But the other trick when you're making a fingerprint is your fingerprint should look like a square. I know, right? Because you see all those fingerprints, they're just those little ovals. But that's not going to give us all the information that we might need because the center of your pattern might not be in the center of your print. So another simple way to do it is to take a washable marker, just put some marker on your fingerprint, and do the same thing. You can do a process called super glue fuming. And this is something that you can do at home because it doesn't require a lot of, super fancy equipment. I'm going to show you how I set this up when I do it. So, number one, you have a container with a lid. Okay. And then I have a mug warmer. Right, so I put my mug warmer in here. This is just a little weighing boat, an aluminum foil weighing boat. You can just use a piece of tin foil and make it in this shape. You put it on the mug warmer, and then you can use super glue. Okay, super glue is a cyanoacrylate ester, so we just take a little piece of it, put it on there about the size of a nickel, all right? And then we take a cup with some warm water in it, put it in here. Now, you take whatever item you're going to super glue fume, and in this case, I'm just going to put this monster can in there. Put it in there, put the lid in, plug in your mug warmer, and turn it on, and you just wait a few minutes. So super glue fuming means that as we're heating up that super glue, all right, the material it's made out of will adhere to the oils and perspiration from the fingerprint deposited on your piece of evidence. And then after about 15-20 minutes, you can pull it out, and you can see these little white areas right here. Okay, that's where a fingerprint was deposited. And then you can either dust this and lift it and look at it that way, or you can just get out your magnifying glass and take a peek at it and maybe make some determination about those fingerprints. So, a couple of fun things that you can do with fingerprints, and you can do some of these things at home. Thanks for sharing your time with us on Curiosity Uncovered.